Hot Toddy by Scott, whose last name I did not catch. Fade in.
That's his name. I'm not the
Fade in. Exterior pub night. Heavy raindrops plop in puddles on the sidewalk. Thunder rumbles through the black sky. Title over. Inspired by actual events. A young man and young woman, early 20s, stagger from the pub, well oiled. They giggle until they realize how hard it's raining. Title over. Kirkcaldy, Scotland, 1958. They try to cover themselves with their meager coats, their breath visible in the cold air.
Where's the brawling?
The young man shrugs. He cups his hands, tries to light a cigarette with a soggy match. The young woman rolls her eyes. She lowers her head, tugs on her coat for protection. The young man gives up, flips the cigarette away. They lock arms, huddle together, and weave off down the street.
Let's say we go stop for another pint. Get out of this bleeding rain.
It's getting late.
Oh, come on, love.
We need to get on.
It's Friday. I got paid.
He tries to nuzzle her neck. She chuckles, jerks her head away, and gives him a good-natured shove.
What about Jockey?
Mum can watch him. He's asleep anyways.
I don't know.
Come on. One more.
He grabs her by the arm, pulls her along as he starts to run, as best he can. She laughs in spite of herself as they stagger off the sidewalk into the street. They freeze, illuminated by oncoming headlights. A horn blares, brakes screech, thump, thunk. Exterior council flat night. A heavy-set policeman, bundled against the weather, raps on the front door. He blows on his hands. Gavina Wilson, 60s, frail, unkempt, old beyond her years, opens the door. She clings to a shawl draped across her bony shoulders. Her old, flimsy dress is not enough for the cold. The policeman looks past her for a moment to see young Jockey, 6, asleep on the battered couch.
Gavina Wilson?
She gives him a hard look.
May I?
He motions to the inside with his head.
It's the brass monkeys out here.
She steps aside as he walks in. Interior living room night. Gavina closes the door behind him.
Don't like Brothers much.
The policeman forces a smile, takes in the tiny room and sparse surroundings. Faded couch, cockeyed lampshade, battered easy chair. He pauses to look at the holes in young Jockey's jeans and socks, his soiled sweatshirt.
Does the lad have a blanket?
I'm hiding it. Does the lad have a blanket? For fuck's sake.
Right then. I'm afraid, ma'am, well, there's been an accident.
Are they dead or alive?
The policeman casts a sad look at his shoes. Gavina glances at young Jockey and turns back to the policeman.
About time that lad got some good news.
Exterior cemetery day. Gray skies, chilly wind and rain, Scotland on any given day. A clergyman, umbrella in one hand and Bible in the other, stands at the head of 2 fresh, unmarked graves. Gavina and young Jockey huddle under one umbrella. She holds a limp posy. Young Jockey, a waif out of a Dickens novel, stares at the muddy graves.
Dust thou art, and to dust thou shalt return. Amen.
The clergyman motions to Gavina. She tosses the posy. Splat! It lands on one of the fresh graves.
Mud to mud, more like.
She spits towards the graves, motions to young Jockey. He hawks one up and lets it fly. Gavina pats him on the head. The clergyman stares, mouth frozen open, unfamiliar with this sort of grieving. Interior pub day. Gavina and young Jockey settle into a booth as a burly bartender approaches.
Oi, no kids. Don't much like having you in here either.
We just buried his parents, so stuff it.
Sorry, love.
Bring me a pint. And a half.
Bartender cocks his head, not sure.
I'm thirsty.
The bartender moves off for the drinks.
3 things you need to know in life. First off, don't trust the Brits. They poison our water.
Young Jockey, serious, nods and takes it in.
Second, don't knock up a tart like your dad did. Not that you aren't a good lad.
Young Jockey, unsure of what she means, nods anyway.
Figure out what you're good at. Your dad was good for nothing but drinking. Mom shouldn't have to speak of her own son this way, but there you have it.
The bartender returns with the drinks, puts both the pint and the half pint in front of Gavina. He gives her another suspicious look. Her glare tells him to piss off. Gavina pushes the half pint across the table to young Jockey.
Drink that. Might as well learn now, it ain't good for you.
Young Jockey looks at the glass, then Gavina, confused.
Drink it. All the better if you throw it back up.
Young Jockey takes a sip, tentative.
Tastes like shit, eh?
Young Jockey then considers his glass with appreciation. He drains the beer, slams the glass down like a pro. Gavina shudders as Jockey lets out a long belch. Young jockey looks across the pub to where two men toss darts at a board fixed to the wall. He breaks into a broad smile, works himself out of the booth. Gavin tries to stand.
Jockey! No!
She clutches her chest, falls back into her seat. Her eyes roll like BBs in a jar. Her head thumps onto the table. Her dentures pop out, come to rest inches from her open mouth. Young jockey gives the dentures a yuck look, grabs Gavin's pint, and chugs it down. Interior Lister pub night. Boisterous cheers of drunks fill the air as Jockey Wilson, 24, pudgy, stringy dark hair, moth-eaten sweater, and dirty dungarees, drains a pint of beer. He raises the empty glass over his head to even louder cheers. Title over, 1976. A cigarette dangles from Jockey's lips. He squints as smoke swirls into his eyes. The crowd goes quiet. Right arm cocked at the elbow, a dart in his hand, he balances himself with a fresh pint of beer in his left. Jockey's right shoulder twitches as he lines up his shot with the dartboard hanging on the wall. He releases the shot. Bullseye! Some of the drunks roar, others groan. As Jockey turns in circles for the throng, nods and grins in self-appreciation. Title over. Hot Toddy. In darts, an extremely skilled player, especially when inebriated. Mungan Campbell, 22, is a clone of Eric the Red. Bushy red beard, horned helmet, furry vest, breastplate, large knife and a sheath.
Pay up, lads.
The losers mutter and hand over their cash to Jockey. He grins, counts the money as he turns and bumps into Dougal Burns, late 40s, unshaven, fisherman's cap and coat, could be a dock worker just off of shift. Dougal holds the elbow of his daughter, Malvina Burns, 17. Long dark hair, dark eyes filled with tears, giving her the look of an orphan without any prospects.
Mr. Burns. Malvina. Nice to see you.
Bastard!
Dougal draws back his arm and punches Jockey in the face with a powerful right hand. Jockey staggers, falls to the floor, his face awash in blood. The drunks erupt with shout and yell. Hey! Mungan lunges at Dougal and grabs him at a tight bear hug.
Well, that's my best mate. I could gut you.
Dougal struggles against Mungan's hold. His chest heaves. He pushes himself free and stands over Jockey.
I'll tell you who should be gutted.
Jockey wipes his nose with his hand and checks the blood.
Tell him, girl.
Malvina sniffles. Dougal gives her arm a yank.
Tell him.
I saw the doc today.
You're gonna do right by my daughter, or I'll pay if your balls on a plate.
Easy, Dougal.
What's it gonna be, boy?
Jockey pushes himself off the floor, wipes his bloody nose again with a hand. He rubs the blood on his pants, takes Malvina's hands, looks into her eyes. She sniffles, wipes her nose with the sleeve of her bargain bin coat, tries to smile.
Is that a fucking proposal?
Jockey looks at Dougal, grins, and turns back to the drunks.
I'm engaged, lads. Drinks on me.
Cheers and roars fill the pub again as the drunks crowd together in a push toward the bar. Malvina tries to hide her smile from Dougal, who glares at his son-in-law-to-be.
What'll it be, Dad?
Dougal draws back and punches Jockey in the stomach. Jockey gasps as he drops to the floor. He rolls over and comes to rest against a man's shoes. He looks up and notices for the first time Eric Bristow, mid to late 30s, whose pompadour and outfit channel John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever. Eric smiles through an exhaled stream of cigarette smoke and speaks with a Cockney accent of blue-collar London.
You play darts better than you fight, mate.
Jockey gulps for air.
Eric Bristow?
Dougal jerks Malvina by the arm and they head for the exit. Eric pushes up from his table as Mungan approaches. They help Jockey to his feet. Dougal and Malvina stop when they reach the door. He turns and points at Jockey.
Quit mucking about and get a real job. Now!
He gives Malvina one more yank as they exit and slams the door behind them. Mungan draws the large knife from its sheath and leans in close to Jockey.
Well, I know you're going to be family, but just give the word if you want him disemboweled.
Jockey considers the thought. Eric reaches into his pocket and pulls out a business card, hands it to Jockey.
And the British Darts Organization has some of us out on a talent search.
The BDO?
There's an embassy qualifier coming up in a few months in Edinburgh. Let me know if you're interested.
The embassy? Bloody hell.
Interior Registrar's Office day. Jockey, with two black eyes and a band-aid across his nose, and Malvina holding a modest posy, stand in front of the registrar, 60s, white hair, dressed like an undertaker, world-weary in look and demeanor. They're flanked by Dougal and Grace Burns, late 40s, plump and trending up on one side, Mungan on the other. Aside from Mungan in his usual Viking attire, the rest of the motley crew is dressed in second-hand clothes. Jockey claws at his tie and tight collar as the registrar looks up from his Bible to Mungan.
Do you have the ring?
Aye.
Mungan uses one hand to fish through his Viking regalia for the ring, grimaces as his hand is snagged in something. He gives it a pull, and a happy bag, UK equivalent of Cracker Jack, pops out. Candies and sweets spill across the floor. Dougal's veins bulge in his neck. His face turns purple. Mungan flicks a piece of sticky candy off of a tiny plastic ring, holds it between thumb and forefinger. He offers a broad smile as he hands the ring to Jockey.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Malvina stares at the plastic ring and stifles a sob.
Sorry, love.
The registrar has seen many of these gong shows and is not empathetic.
Just repeat after me. With this ring, I take the
Malvina, goddammit.
I take the Malvina to be my wife.
Take thee, Malvina, to be my wife.
Jockey struggles to get the little ring to fit on Malvina's finger. No luck. He offers a sheepish smile to the registrar and pockets the ring. Grace dabs at her eye with a hanky. Dougal's chest heaves. His breath comes in gulps. The registrar looks to Malvina.
Well then, the ring for the groom?
Malvina averts her eyes, looks at the floor, embarrassed.
Right then. Just take his hand and repeat after me.
Malvina takes Jockey's hand. They exchange smiles that mix anticipation and fear.
For better or worse, I thee wed. Probably worse.
For better or worse, I thee wed. Probably worse.
I now pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss the bride.
Jockey and Malvina share a kiss. Mungan beams, tosses a handful of rice into the air. It rains down on the newlyweds. Jockey moves to embrace Dougal, who draws back and punches Jockey in the face. He drops like a stone.
That's in case I never see your fat ass again.
Jockey brushes/spits grains of rice from his bloody mouth. Interior Employment Office Day. An employment counselor, close to retirement, prototypical bureaucrat in gray suit, white shirt, and black tie, stares across his just-so desk through wire-rimmed glasses. Jockey drags on a cigarette, exhales a string of perfect smoke rings. The counselor sips on a glass of water and watches Jockey with bored eyes.
So, you have no CV?
Don't know what that is.
Counselor shuffles through some papers in front of him, holds his pen at the ready.
Right then. Work experience?
Worked in a coal mine when I was a teenager.
I don't have any of that sort of work.
Good, filthy, bloody job.
The counselor stares with dull eyes.
Ran numbers for...
Let's think about legitimate employment.
Jockey stuck again, blows rings, thinks some more.
Drove a truck, delivered produce.
Brilliant. Fine work.
He starts to write on the paper.
Don't have a license now. Drunk driving.
The counselor stops writing, raises his eyes.
Should have it back in a few months.
The counselor lays down his pen, stares at Jockey's black eyes and bandaged nose.
Well, we'll see what we can do.
They both stand, the conversation over. Jockey looks around for an ashtray, doesn't see one. As the counselor reaches to shake his hand, Jockey drops his cigarette into a trash can at the side of the desk. The counselor doesn't notice and puts a hand on Jockey's shoulder to steer him out of the tiny office.
I'll get on this straight away, after tea anyway.
Lovely. My father-in-law is... I'm very keen to find work.
The counselor offers a weak smile. Jockey throws a wave over his shoulder as he leaves the office. The employment counselor stares after him, hands on hips. He removes his glasses and rubs his eyes. He pushes out a long breath, puts his glasses back on, sniffs at the air. He turns to see smoke swirling out of the trash can. He sighs, strolls to his desk, picks up his glass. He shakes his head and slowly pours water into the can. Hiss! He waves the smoke away, slowly, with his hand. Exterior Lister Pub Day. Jockey wears blue overalls and a yellow safety vest as he stands beside a trash bin in front of the Lister Pub. A sanitation truck idles alongside him in the street. He pulls the trash bag out of the bin and sets it on the ground. As he is reflected in the front window of the pub, he cups his hands, peers in the window to see Mungan Campbell alone at the bar, drinking, smoking. Two patrons across the room behind Mungan hold pints, toss darts at the board on the wall. Exterior pub. Jockey lingers over the scene.
Oi, quit pissing about.
Jockey ignores the driver as he stares through the window, his sad eyes fixed on the dartboard. Interior flat night. Malvina stands over the sink, washes dishes. She hands a plate to Jockey to dry. He forces a smile, turns his back to her, closes his eyes as he dries. Interior Lister pub night. Jockey fires a bullseye. He raises a pint with Mungan and the lads. Gulps, grins, celebrates. Exterior Glasgow Street day. Jockey lifts a trash bag from the bin, struggles against its weight. He tries to balance the bag on top of the bin. The bag's weight shifts, spills the contents to the sidewalk. Passers-by scatter to avoid the explosion of junk. Interior Lister pub night. Jockey and Mungan, arms locked, twirl in a circle and laugh. Jockey grasps a fistful of money in one hand, raises a pint on high with the other as the lads clap and cheer. Interior flat night. Malvina, more visibly pregnant, sets a plate of boiled cabbage and potatoes in front of Jockey, who's seated at a small kitchen table. He stares, smiles vacantly as Malvina takes her place at the table. He drains a glass of beer. Exterior Glasgow Street day. Jockey stands behind the sanitation truck, rain pouring down. He heaves a heavy trash bag into the back of the truck. A car speeds past through a huge puddle, splashes water all over him. He shakes the water from his hands, soaked to the bone. He pulls a soggy package of cigarettes from his pocket, stares at the soggy mess, sticks the packet back in his pocket. Interior flat night. Malvina sits on the tired couch, reads a magazine. She lays it in her lap, stifles a yawn. She leans her head on Jockey's shoulder, a contented smile on her face. His head lolls back on the couch, his eyes closed and his mouth wide open, an empty pint in his hand. Interior Lister pub night. Drunks roar as Jockey and Mungan high-five. Jockey drains a glass, raises a small wad of cash for the pub to admire.
By the great God of Odin, Jockey Wilson will not be denied.
He will be if he doesn't take care of his tab from last week.
Mungan unsheathes his knife, moves toward the bar, menacing.
Jockey always makes good, you twat.
And he's not the only one who owes the till, so put that fucking knife away before I rip your horns off.
Jockey approaches the bar, hands the bartender the cash.
Don't get your knickers in a twist, mate. That should cover both of us for a while. 2 more?
The bartender pockets the cash, turns to draw Jockey and Mungan fresh pints. Mungan gives him the stink eye.
You tosser. We're keeping this bloody place alive.
Jockey smiles, slaps him on the shoulder.
Driving the economy, we are.
Mungan relaxes and grins.
Damn near bloody heroes, that's us.
The bartender brings their fresh drinks, lets them know with a look he has a different opinion. Jockey raises his glass, Mungan follows.
To heroes.
Aye.
They drain their pints, slam the glasses on the bar. They share a self-congratulatory smiles. Mungan's expression turns for the worse. His eyes spring open as he looks over Jockey's shoulder.
Shit.
What?
Jockey turns to see Dougal drawing back his fist. Jockey throws his arms up for protection.
Whoa, whoa!
Dougal's punch is deflected.
I told you before, quit mucking about.
Jockey makes it up as he goes as they scuffle.
Mucking about, I'm practicing, right? For the embassy qualifier.
Bollocks.
As I live and breathe.
The scuffle slows to a stop. Dougal looks towards the dartboard.
Go over there and throw a bullseye.
Jockey smiles, makes his way to the Aki, the throw line. A drunk hands him a dart. Jockey positions himself, twitches his shoulder, aims, fires. Bullseye. He turns with a smile to see Dougal's fist bearing down on his nose. Bam! Jockey crumbles to the floor, a red fountain shooting from his nose. Mungan locks Dougal in a bear hug as the angry father-in-law straddles Jockey.
That's in case you come back empty-handed.
Interior Stoke Pub night. Jockey, still with 2 black eyes and a bandaged nose, joins Eric Bristow in tossing darts at a board hanging on the wall. They both smoke and work on pints. The t-shirt under Jockey's dated cardigan is beer-stained, his dungarees on loan from a car mechanic. A small crowd of pub patrons slowly builds as the onlookers realize they're getting a free exhibition.
Well, you qualified. Step 1.
Thought the embassy would be tougher.
You just qualified. The tournament hasn't started.
Jockey shrugs, chugs.
How does the family feel about you being down here?
Jockey glances at the floor, wipes perspiration from his eyes. Eric shakes his head. Jockey throws the next dart. Bullseye! Pub patrons elbow one another, gesture toward Jockey and whisper, impressed with his skill. Jockey picks up on the attention and mugs for the crowd. Eric tosses a dart at the board. Bullseye!
Hot toddies come and go, mate. This is the embassy, not the Lister pub.
The drink helps me settle when I'm nervous.
You must be very nervous.
Jockey smiles, gulps some beer, and smokes. Jockey picks up a dart, stumbles, idly fires it at the board. Bullseye. He dances and plays to the crowd, pleased with the attention. Eric lines up his next shot.
Don't be humble. You're not that great.
Eric throws his dart. Bullseye. Jockey smiles, steps to the ocky, readies.
I'm just saying, you're not at the pub with a bunch of duffers on the lash and some numpty dressed like a Viking.
Jockey freezes in place. Anger builds in his eyes. He drops his darts, clenches and unclenches his fists as he stares Eric down.
What?
Jockey inches up to Eric, stands nose to nose with him.
What did you say?
Well, anyone who goes around dressed like...
Jockey reaches out and grabs Eric by the throat.
Don't ever say that about Mungan Campbell again. Ever!
Eric struggles to get Jockey to release his grip. Jockey looks at the crowd, embarrassed, makes his way out of the pub as Eric rubs his neck.
What the hell is he on about?
Flashback. Interior orphanage dining room night. Title over. Kirkcaldy Children's Home, 1959. Young Jockey, 7, chugs from a bottle of Fanta soda, an array of cakes, cookies, and sweets laid out on the table. He scoops the food into his mouth with chubby hands, oblivious to the mess he's making. A janitor, late 50s, scrawny, wispy chin beard, approaches from the background, pushing a bucket with a mop. He parks the bucket and mop long enough to sneak a nip from a hip flask. The janitor eases up behind Jockey, who pays no mind. Young Jockey takes another pull from the Fanta bottle.
Leave it to Jockey Wilson to take all the sweets for himself.
Young Jockey continues to gorge himself.
Them sweets is meant for everybody, you know.
Young Jockey closes his eyes, savors the food.
It's a wee late to be raiding the fridge.
The relentless feeding slows. Young Jockey casts a cynical glance at the janitor's back pocket.
We late to be sneaking drams.
He shovels in another gooey mouthful.
You got a mouth for a 7-year-old.
Young Jockey washes down his latest mouthful with another long tug on the Fanta. The janitor shakes his head, turns to walk away. He stops, turns back to Jockey.
The gov says to tell your daft little mate to put the costume back in the chest before bedtime.
He's not daft.
He's here because he's playing with a short deck. Sorry, man. He's a numpty.
He's not a numpty.
Have it your way. But the gov says no more sleeping in the costume.
He turns and walks off. Jockey flips him a stubby middle finger. Jockey looks under the table and sees Little Mungan Campbell, 5, a miniature Viking, crouching and clutching a small wooden sword.
You can come out. He's gone.
Little Mungan crawls out from under the table. Young Jockey hands him a cookie.
Ain't no one ever calling you a numpty as long as I have anything to do with it.
Little Mungan smiles and crunches on his cookie. Young Jockey tugs on the Fanta, puts a chubby hand on Little Mungan's shoulder, and flashback. Interior Lister Pub night. Mungan Campbell and the drunks are glued to a small TV set propped up on the bar. Sid Waddell, mid-30s, is on screen. He has shorter, darker hair than Art Garfunkel, but they both stuck their finger in the same outlet when the receding hairline kicked in. Waddell's loud sport coat clashes with a mismatched tie. Sid Waddell here with you at the 1977 NBC Championship. John the Stone Mason is through to the finals as expected, but the surprise of this tournament has been the play of Kirkcaldy's Jockey Wilson, who has captivated. Sid's voice is drowned out by the cheers in the pub. Mungan leads the crowd as he waves his hand.
Jockey! Jockey! Jockey!
Interior
Jockey!
Embassy Championship Stoke night. Sid hunches over his microphone at the announcer's table, which sits just below the elevated player stage. This pudgy Scot has come from nowhere. Well, from a pub, most likely. He dispatched his fellow Scot, Jamie Brave Dart Harvey, to make it through to tonight's semi-final match with Eric Bristow. A large crowd fills the arena. Most are already on their feet, pints ready. Jockey Wilson will have to play out of his pie crust to take down the crafty Cockney, but who knows? He's been chuffing along like a choo-choo this week, and the crowds here in Stoke have taken quite the liking to Kirkcaldy's favourite son. The crowds start to clap, 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 clap.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our second semi-final match of the evening.
The clap, clap, clap dies off.
Please cast your eyes to the rear of the arena and welcome, from London, 3-time world champion, Eric, the crafty Cockney Bristow.
Eric bursts into the arena, bathed in spotlight, slaps high fives with the crowd. He bounces through the sweeping spotlights, up the steps and onto the stage. Eric waves his arms like a prize fighter, his electric blue bowling-style shirt reflecting the lights. The crowd noise subsides.
And also, please welcome from Kirkcaldy, Jockey Wilson.
Jockey reels in, a rotund sunflower shimmering in a neon yellow shirt, pint in hand, cigarette between his lips. The crowd bellows its appreciation. Eric is a bit taken aback by the raucous level of their response. Jockey grins, weaves his way to the stage through fans reaching out to touch him. Jockey stumbles up the steps to the stage, saves his beer while breaking his fall with his free hand. Eric steps forward, offers a hand to help him up. Jockey ignores the offer and bites Eric on the ankle. The crowd howls and laughs.
Bloody hell!
Jockey winks, grins at Eric.
Sod off!
Jockey raises up, does a little dance for the crowd. He looks back down at Eric, who's now seated on the stage, examining his ankle. Jockey gives him a wicked grin.
What are you, a fucking vampire?
Jockey taunts Eric with a chomping gesture. The crowd is in full throat except for John Mason, late 40s. Vito Corleone as the pasta and gravity began to kick in. Seated in the front row below the stage, across from Sid Waddell's announcer table. A comb-over can't hide reality, and a flinty glare explains his nickname, The Stone. John Mason is written in black script above the pocket of his white competition shirt. The crowd quiets as...
Ladies and gentlemen, let's play darts!
Montage, the darts match. Eric, ramrod straight at the jockey, finds his mark. Jockey, smoking and drinking on end, matches each shot. John Mason sits sphinx-like, glares. The crowd roars at the skillful display by both players. Eric smooths his pompadour with a boastful flourish after a shot to his liking. Jockey fires off smoke rings, gulps beer, does an exaggerated power squat, lets out a primal yell. Mason puts a balled fist to his mouth as if stifling the urge to throw up. End montage. The crowd bellows as Sid hunches over his microphone, smoke curling from a cigarette in the ashtray near his right hand. Who could have seen this coming? Jockey Wilson has taken Eric Bristow down to the very nub in this match. The crafty cockney is up against it now. Jockey steps up to the jockey, blinks perspiration from his eyes. Eric rests a thumb under his chin, index finger curled over his mouth.
Quiet, please. Mr. Wilson needs double nines for the win.
Jockey twitches at the jockey, takes aim. He weaves a touch from right to left, steadies. Jockey twitches again, throws. Double nines! The crowd erupts. Mason, stone-faced, gets up from his seat and leaves. Jockey dances about the stage. Interior Lister Pub night. Mungan, Campbell, and the assembled throng are in wild celebration, hoisting drinks, cheering at the TV. Mungan whirls his knife over his head.
Jockey! Jockey! Jockey!
Interior Embassy Championship night. Sid stands at the announcer's table, waves his microphone with exuberance. Jockey Wilson is through to the finals, and this was no fluke. This was championship darts. Eric offers a brave smile, extends a hand to Jockey as the crowd continues to cheer.
Gotta hand it to you, mate. That was something.
Cheers.
But bite me again, and I'll rip your nuts off.
Jockey smiles as Eric turns, exits the stage. Jockey waves to the crowd, pumps both fists in the air a la Rocky as he takes in the cheers. Interior British Darts Organization, BDO, offices, day. 6 BDO board members, 50s and 60s, sit at a conference table, all business in suits and ties. Wesley Rudd, mid-50s, BDO commissioner, sits at the head of the table. His half glasses and closely cropped gray hair give him the look of a retired military officer. A circular wall plaque behind Rudd's chair in the style of a dartboard reads British Darts Organization. Each man shuffles through some papers in front of his place.
The TV ratings from the embassy are quite impressive.
Nods and mutters of agreement from the other men. Rudd leafs through his papers.
This Jockey Wilson seems to have attracted considerable interest.
Jockey. Jockey Wilson.
So it is. We need to keep an eye on this gentleman. Surely we don't need inebriated players biting fellow competitors on the ankle.
Oh, quite so, sir. But with respect, these ratings are unlike anything we've seen, and...
A very close eye. As commissioner of this organization, I am most mindful, as well we all should be, of the image we present to the public.
It goes without saying. But if I may, the potential impact on revenue...
Ours is unmistakably a pub sport. But under my watch, it will not be an advert for drunkenness.
No, that was hardly suggested.
Rudd stares over his half glasses, scans the table with a look that says there will be no further discussion. Interior hallway, Embassy Championship night. The players' only room door opens. Laughter and cigarette smoke pour from the room as Jockey, laughing, steps into the hallway. A hand grabs the door from inside as Jockey tries to pull the door closed. John Mason, grim, unsmiling, steps into the hallway, closes the door behind him.
Wilson.
Jockey stops, turns to face Mason. His grin fades. Mason moves in close, nearly bumps Jockey.
You're a fucking disgrace.
Jockey cocks his head, quizzical.
What do you think you're playing at?
Playing that?
Mason inches closer, menacing.
Just because you can bleed a few quid from your mates doesn't mean you belong on tour.
Listen.
No, you listen. Don't embarrass yourself or the game. Maybe you should just head back to the Loch Ness.
Jockey tenses, tries to calm himself.
There's good money to be made out here, and
For professionals.
Mason bellies Jockey until he's pinned to the wall. Mason sneers, looks Jockey up and down, turns to leave. Jockey blinks, confused. Mason stops, turns back toward him.
I'll stuff you and your piss-yellow shirt in a wheelie bin when I'm done with you.
Mason glares, continues on his way. Jockey stares after him, not sure just what happened. Interior Lister Pub night. Mungan Campbell slumps on the bar by the television, bearded chin in hand. The drunks are no more happy. The bar is quiet, but for Sid Waddell's voice coming through the television set. John Mason fills the screen from the waist up, right hand poised to throw the final dart. So this is it. The stone has made short work of Jockey Wilson here in the Embassy final. A close-up of Jockey fills the screen, his eyes downcast, unable to watch what's about to come. John Mason is the best there is, but Jockey Wilson has let the darts world know who he is. Mason throws the final dart. Bullseye, a dagger to Jockey's heart. Applause bursts from the TV into the quiet pub. Jockey offers a limp hand of congratulations to Mason. Mason ignores him as Wesley Rudd strides onto the stage applauding. Jockey's hand dangles in the air. Rudd pumps Mason's hand in congratulations. Both men wave and smile, as best Mason can, to the crowd. Mungan lifts a middle finger toward the TV.
Tosses.
End of selection.
Tell me, halfway through this thing I was bursting. I wanted to pop out and say, we're hearing far too much from the man with the glasses at the end. Did you notice that? I was internally screaming. Firstly, I really appreciate what this is, and I think Jockey's a great character. I tend to start not being positive enough. And I really think that this was in that line of that English movie where it's the sloppy idiot overcomes all odds, which the English do very well, and they are lovely movies, and whether it's Billy Elliot or Kinky Boots or all that kind of stuff. Anyway, but halfway through this read, I was screaming, "Let them talk," was what I kept thinking. Jockey has about 3 lines and I didn't notice it when I was reading it, and when you hear it, it's like, oh my God, I want to know so much more about Jockey, and I want him to talk and reveal himself, and I want everybody to talk and reveal themselves, and I want this to be, I want to learn more. And the other main point for me is that I really want it to be about darts. I want darts to be the most important thing in Jockey's life, and I want to sort of feel that Jockey's willing to kind of chuck everything. Yes, he's working in sanitation, he's trying to do the right thing, but the siren song is the darts, and I'm not feeling it. I know you give it like a wistful look at the dartboard, and there's a montage in there which is, he's winning a lot of money, but it all seems like a bit of fun. It sort of feels like in these 30 pages there really needs to be a moment where Jockey's like, no, it's darts. This is my thing. And I don't know how you do it, but it just felt, I just really wanted, because I was along for, and I like that, he gets his ass kicked, and you're setting up what's going to happen, that he's battling the establishment, and that he's this sloppy idiot. So I get all of that, and I think that was all lovely, but I just felt like no one was saying, no conversation went on more than 2 sentences, and except for the villains, Dougal and Mason, they had more lines, and I just sort of wanted to get to know Jockey more, and I think, like I said, I wanted to know Jockey more, and I wanted to know darts more. I wanted to know, this feels like a sports movie, and yet we're not seeing the sport. which was sort of odd for me. And then just near the end, when the commentator, when you did a great job, David, as the commentator, you could have done a whole movie just listening to Sid. Just, you know, he should be announcing golf. I think that screw the whispering. You know, and he's lining up the butt. Being Australian, I don't know if you're familiar with Strictly Ballroom.
Yes.
The Baz Luhrmann movie.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like you could take it in that direction, which sort of, you know, at its core was sort of there, but everybody was sort of heightened, like the characters, and it was this ridiculous world of ballroom dancing that everybody was taking way more seriously than ballroom dancing ever really should be, and darts sort of fits that. Like, it's like, this is life and death to these people, and the rest of us are going, it's darts. You know, it's a pub game.
Right.
And I full disclosure, because I'm Australian and we have a lot of English culture, I've watched darts on TV.
Yeah.
It is gripping.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like watching billiards.
It's not curling, but it's close.
No, well, curling's more boring. But they are these sort of round-bellied, like the pool players, the snooker players too. You know, they're these half-drunk pub guys, but darts is like their thing, and like they are really good at it, because as a kid we all, I mean, I don't know if you did, but we had dartboards, and it's hard. It's really hard. Yeah. And these guys, they look very unlikely athletes, but they take it super seriously. Right. And so that is sort of feels like a great atmosphere for a sort of a slightly skewed comic, but grounded in reality, because you ground him so well at the beginning, because he's, you know, had a really hard life, and yet he's in this sort of slightly surreal world with the guy with the comb. You know, he has to have a comb over, or whoever, the commissioner guy, or the like
Mason does.
Mason does. But in Strictly Ballroom, that character was played by an actor named Bill Hunter, and if you've never familiar, Bill Hunter was in every Australian movie for about 25 years. I think he was contractually obligated to be in it. But he was always like the bulging-eyed bad guy with the weird wig, like that no one could notice. Like, he was in Muriel's Wedding. He's Muriel's dad, who you know, was having the affair and was always welcoming. I don't know if you've seen Muriel's Wedding.
A long time ago.
Okay, but it's like he's the local councilman who's on the take. That's sort of like that commissioner guy, and so it's sort of fit. I'm not saying you should write Strictly Ballroom, but it's like you are dealing with a world that is somewhat absurd to your audience. So it's an interesting mix to kind of have that absurd world where these guys take it really seriously, and yet it still comes from, you've got a character who's still grounded in tragedy and reality. That's really interesting. So I just didn't see enough of it in these 30 pages. So I kind of think you've blazed an excellent trail. Now it'd be great to kind of like, okay, it's about jockey and darts. So I've got to tell the audience about jockey and darts, and how much it means to him, and you know what his life is, and maybe the other stuff, you know, just I don't know how you fit it in, but that's what I was screaming, because like when they do talk, they were saying you'd have a great way with the dialogue. So it's like, you know, I just wanted less of David and more. No offense to you, sir.
None taken.
That's all I have.
I think our thoughts do align. With regards to, it's okay if they don't.
What are you talking about? I love everybody.
We have two different brains. No, I also want to know more about Jockey, and I do feel like I will know more if he takes a more active role in these first 30 pages, specifically in the present timeline. I found him most active in the orphanage flashback. I knew exactly what he was doing, and I love that scene, by the way, like where he really sticks his neck out for his friend, and also is emotionally vulnerable then with his friend. It's an act of courage, and then it's an act of vulnerability. And I think I get to know him very well as a child, and he's a bit of a cipher to me as an adult. Even though he is profane and hilarious and violent and wild, I still feel like I'm on the outside looking in. I don't feel like I'm in the passenger seat of his car driving along his life with him, and I think I will have an easier time hooking into him if I have a clear understanding of what he wants and what he's doing to get what he wants. I mean, and look, let's just take the darts of it all. And to your point about understanding the world of darts more, I feel like the instant I hear about that competition, I'm like, oh, of course he's going to compete. And I think maybe I wasn't as clear. And look, I'm not reading this, I'm just hearing this. It's possible I missed details, but I'm not clear about what's standing in the way of him in darts until he does compete, and I hear that boardroom of executives basically talk about why this person cannot compete in this field. He's the Eliza Doolittle of darts, essentially. But until that moment, I think I think I could use a lot more clarity about who he is, what he wants, and what's standing in the way of him getting what he wants. And I think that will tell me a lot about who he is. I mean, for me, watching a character go after what they want and be thwarted gives me that information. Not only gives me that information, but also really helps me root for that character. So that was, I would love that information in those first 30 pages. I also think it took me a beat to realize this was essentially a sports movie. It's an unconventional, out of the box sports movie, which I love, but it took me a beat because in that first, actually I'll just put it this way, in the twin scenes in your first flashback, the first scene feels pretty straightforward with that really dramatic ending of, thump thump, the double accident. But then once we get into the house, it felt like a pitch black comedy. It felt very very funny and very, very dark. And so I thought, and going into the, the funeral / wake and then the bar after, I thought I was watching a really dark comedy a la, I guess, a Harold and Maude maybe. And then once we got into the sports of it all, it felt like it was still a very funny movie, but it started to feel more like an out-of-the-box sports movie. And by the way, you can have a pitch black comedy and an out-of-the-box sports movie. For me, I was having a little trouble early on hooking into tone. I think later on the tone for me evened out, but I think it's worth looking at those first pages. Do you need those flashbacks? Are they going to come back later? Do we need that character information up top to understand who this person is? If so, then great, keep it. But I think it's really worth asking yourself the hard questions of these are my first minutes on screen. My audience's eyes are still adjusting. They're learning the rules of this world. What do I want them to be learning about what kind of creature or beast my movie is? And I would never suggest that you, how do I put this? I love mixing genres, and I think every movie is like its own sub genre. Every movie has its own very specific tone. But in those first few scenes, tonally, I was a little bit confused. And so I think just having a really clear sense of what you want us to be feeling in your movie, you're really setting the template in those first few scenes. But having a blast in this world. I really, really like spending time here with these characters. I laughed so much. I want to know what happens next. Once I know that it's this guy, to your point, this this sloppy guy who's also a savant and a genius, right, against a stuffed shirt bureaucratic system, I get excited. And that happens late into the first act, but I'm excited to see this David conquer that Goliath. That to me, and that's absolutely a movie I want to watch. But I will need those footholds earlier on to help me understand that's the movie that I'm going to be watching.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think it does give you an opportunity for Jockey to sort of be more proactive, to make decisions in those first 30 pages, to pursue the darts, and and risk things, and take control of his own story in those first.
It's interesting. Oh, sorry, I didn't
No.
It's just interesting. I was thinking about
You get to interrupt others.
I'd rather not. I'd rather just read your pauses correctly. But
there are no pauses.
I was just thinking about I met this. Oh God, I wish I could remember. I feel like it was Kenya, Tanzania. I met this woman, this theater maker, who was from one of those two countries one time, and she was telling me, I know what it was. It was I was visiting Sundance Theater Lab, and they were having this like, forum where they were talking about the state of theater, and there was a lot of like, you know, writers complaining about writerly complaints and actors complaining about actorly complaints. Like, and it all felt, I mean, a lot of them were from New York, Brooklyn specifically, and it felt like very Brooklyn specific. Like, for example, this actress was complaining, like she just wished she could just work as an actor full time instead of her day job, which was co-running an artisanal ice cream company. And so I was like,
Oh my god.
I like really had to keep a straight face on for like 2 years. But and I'm building to my point, which is this woman who was this theater maker from sub-Saharan Africa, who was an invited a guest at this lab, said, it's like interesting hearing you guys all talk, and she was very respectful, and she did not have to be, but she was, which is lovely of her. She said, I don't get to make theater during the day. I don't have time. Like, I am working my job, I am taking care of my children. Like, it's very strange that I'm like here for 3 weeks in Utah. Like, that never happens. But I make my theater at night. We all do. We make our theater, her specific theater company, they make their theater, their, grandparents watch the kids, and instead of sleeping, they make theater. So they're like, their rehearsal is from 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. So they get 4 hours of sleep instead of, but the thing is, they do it because they have to make theater. It's worth getting 4 hours versus 8 hours of sleep because those 4 hours fill their souls. It's the most meaningful part of their day. And so I think about this guy that has a lot of obligations, right? That he works a very unglamorous job, he has a dependent. What time does he steal away for darts? And how does darts, and even watching him carve out that time, how does he comport his day where he, is able to show up to the table as a member of the workforce, as a husband, as a grandson, whatever. Like, what is he doing for everybody else, let's say? And then how does he still carve that time away from himself? And how do we see him? And again, I'm not trying to change his character or make him something he's not, but he doesn't have to be like super responsible or upstanding. But I think we do want to see this love, like these, like the half hour he gets to play darts, just like makes his day. It makes the rest of the day and all the drudgery worthwhile, which I think is, I think I'm in a room surrounded by creatives or people with a passion, and it is that thing, that time that you get to practice your craft and do the thing that you're best at in this world, and that makes you feel most alive, that makes all the drudgery worth it. So I think it's worth thinking about, if I see that, I get the stakes. I totally get the stakes. And then once I realize, and I'm so happy to see him like beat the video game level of he finally got out of his small pond where he never belonged. He's a savant. He has this superhuman skill, and he finally gets to put it to use. And then I see, and now this is like this is the big boss he has to go up against, like the system, like and that's an exciting set to play with. Anyway, I really want to spend time with this guy in this world, and I think if I understand him better and the stakes in the world better, I'm in. So that's
Thank you.
It is interesting. The one of the things I do in our workshop is that, and in the consulting that I do. By the way, I've slashed my consulting fees for December, half price. So if you want any consulting from me in December, I finally have time. So I want to try and help as many writers as I can in December. So now is the time to basically bleed me dry. But I really get focused because of the sheer volume of scripts that I've read in the last year. How you introduce characters and how you set the thing going has become so much more important to me. And for example, I'm going to say this now in every single live read. There are too many scripts that I'm reading right now that start with the character waking up in the morning and turning off their alarm as the opening moment that we meet the character. I'm not exaggerating. I've read 350 scripts plus since July, and I would say 20% of them started that way. I'm not kidding. So please, when you're looking at introducing your character in the beginning of your project, please think about what my audience is prepared for, what they're sitting down to. This is your opportunity. You have all the power to control your audience. You have all of it. Complete and total power. So think about them sitting in the cinema or sitting on the couch and be like, okay, how am I going to introduce this and set the table for what's going to come? And I think that is what Kit was saying for yours. It's like you are setting the table in one direction, but then maybe it shifts off in a different direction. When if it is a show about jockey and darts, you can still start with the dead flashback, and maybe jockey's a little 3-year-old is finding solace chucking things at a thing or whatever. Yeah. I mean, don't want to be too on the nose.
No pitch.
But it's like no. Please don't, because that was a terrible pitch.
You made up the rules, man.
But it's like if you could be in the graveyard, like throwing. Yeah. I mean, it's like you want to be terrible. But you know what I mean? It's like you get this opportunity to really engage us, and I share this to everybody, and unfortunately you don't have him opening up with setting his alarm, rolling out of bed and turning off his alarm, but just think about the opportunities that you have when you start when you introduce a character. So you did that, by the way, in yours, because I watched the pilot today. You start on the close-up of her, and we don't know what the fuck's going on, and then she's just talking, and the camera just pulls out and she's in a group. But we don't know that, but we're instantly captivated by what she's saying, and we're like, oh my god. So you could have started her rolling in bed, going with the next scene, I don't want to get out of bed, and her mum wakes her up. You could have started there.
Her mom is her alarm clock, so
right.
it's totally different.
Totally different. But you could have started there if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But it's like you didn't, and so that's just it's just a power thing. Just think about your power. You just have so much more control. We sometimes get so stuck in our heads that I don't think we realise that there is an audience watching, and so you have power to manipulate us, and we want to be manipulated. And that's why we watch things. We want to feel stuff. We want to be surprised. We want to try and figure out what's going on. We don't need to be led. So, we just need a bit of consistent tone, but you can still fuck around with that too. It's just, it's just a power thing. Anyway, we'll take a few and then we'll get on to the Q&A. Anybody have anything?
I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed all of your characters. The characters I felt were very interesting and had a great deal of humor. I feel like Jockey fell short a little bit because I feel like what you're saying from a distance with Jockey in particular. And I also feel like Melvina got sidelined really fast. And I mean, we know you can write fantastic women based on that mother character alone. So I would maybe explore more female characters and bring a life with them in particular. And also I feel like that flashback moment, I don't know if that hit hard enough for me. I don't feel like I've got anything necessarily super new out of Jockey. So I feel like that flashback in particular could have gotten a lot deeper. Or a lot more.
The orphanage flashback?
Yes, the orphanage flashback. To bring something new or deeper emotionally from the Jockey character that contextualized him a little bit better. But I really enjoyed it. I thought so much. I love comedy, and I love this particular kind of comedy as well. So thank you.
By the way, that's Ali. She has a new podcast, Elaine's Cooking for the Soul, that she's worked very hard on. It's a post-apocalyptic cooking show. Please listen to it and give it a review. She's used a bunch of our actors from here as well. It's just all credit to you. You said.
So I'm a sucker for sports comedies.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I love them is because something like Happy Gilmore or Major League, right? You have Happy who doesn't play golf. He doesn't know anything about it, but he has a counterpart, he has a friend named Chubbs who kind of helps him lead the way. Gives him that comfort. And then you got Major League, right? You got the Wild thing, this crazy pitcher who came out of jail, just knows how to throw a fastball, but he has someone to kind of help him go through all this. And I just feel like where I'm going with this is I feel like Jockey and Money, and I feel like there wasn't enough of that friendship for me. That's just my opinion. I just feel especially at the competition, I feel I don't know, I just feel Money maybe yeah, maybe wearing the same shirt he's wearing, maybe drinking a beer with him, smoking a cigarette with him, being his #1 fan. I think that would kind of give him comfort of like, you know, I can do this, like that same time, whatever. I don't know, it's just something like that. That's my opinion.
Jesse just wants more lines in the next read. That's really
I can't grow a red beard.
Yeah, no.
Can I piggyback on that for a second?
yeah.
It was like a few years ago I realized we talk so much about great characters, and I fall in love with a movie, I fall in love with a great relationship. Like truly, if it's a great love story, if it's a great protagonist and antagonist knocking heads, or a great buddy comedy. And I do agree. Like I think these do dovetail. I think if I get these two together and that real synergy and chemistry, I'm going to not only fall in love with them, I'm going to fall in love with Jockey more and understand him more through their relationship.
Yeah, because I just feel like, because he defended him twice, and like he was like really there for him, and it just felt like he kind of like left him at the bar. And I just feel like he should have been there through thick and thin.
By the way, numpty is an awesome. I'm going to use that. It's just a great non-curse word. Did I see your hand up, Nick? Sorry, I will get to you. Dawn? Nick, did you have your hand up? Or?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what you were just saying about how Happy Gilmore had somebody to help him out, how Rick Vaughn had Hayes to help him out in Major League. I thought for a second there when that father-in-law told him to throw the bullseye, I thought for a second we were going to find out he was in the darts too. And that was such an interesting dynamic, that father-in-law and Jockey. I don't know. I don't want to pitch, but that's just like that. I would have loved to have seen more of that.
A punch-based training regime.
It was so confrontational.
Well done. Yeah. And I know he's a real character, right? He's a real guy. So you based it Jockey, or is it not?
Yeah.
So that's part of the challenge too. Is like to take his life story, but then what do you include and what do you manipulate in order to make the story work? So that's the challenge.
3 people, or 4 people in it that are real characters are Jockey, Eric Bristow, Sid Waddell, who is how I learned about Jockey from reading his obituary, and Malvina, his wife. Those are the real people.
Is he still alive, Jockey?
Jockey died at 62 in 2012. That's when I first heard of him. Reading his obituary.
All right. I'll let you know.
And he never cleaned up his act.
No.
It's interesting that this is the note that now I'm going to make 4 people have had, and that we think that the relationship between Mungan and Jockey is I think much more interesting than the relationship between Jockey and his wife. And despite the fact that she's a real character, I wonder if we even need her. Because you've got a flashback to a pivotal experience in Jockey's early life that includes his buddy. And I think that is the more interesting flashback than the flashback to, or the process of him having to get married in a shotgun wedding. So I wonder if maybe there's only room for one great relationship in Jockey's life, and it's Mungan, not Melvina.
The only point I would make to that is obviously nowadays scripts need female characters.
Dawn.
Dawn, I know. I'm nearly passed out because I know you've been the leader of put more women in your movies forever. I was like, but also, but I think the point is Malvina stays if she contributes.
She does.
So I would get her contributing earlier to justify
she
her,
actually
her
plays
role.
a pivotal role. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is not anywhere on the landscape right now. So yeah, that's all. All right. So I think we're done. Did you have anything that you wanted to?
No, except thank you. Appreciate it, and thank the actors. Great job.
All right,